It's a Friday night game. It's Villa versus Leeds, and the expectation is that it's going to be windy. And that is not just from the flatulence of the person nervously sat next to you, getting a little bit worried every time Leeds attack. No, it's going to be windy in weather. But instead of it being windy, I think there's going to be a little bit of blood and thunder. And let's just hope that it's us who are the ones shaking the opposition to the core. This is Talk of the Trinity.
And welcome to the latest edition of Talk of the Trinity podcast. I am Baz Barrett. I am not joined by Mr. Trinity himself, Will Forrest, for this episode. He is busy trying to reconcile himself, trying to stop the tears flowing. Not because we lost on Sunday, but because Danny Ings didn't score. And when Ings doesn't score, it makes Will very sad. And whilst he's not crying about Danny Ings, he is keeping you up to date with all the Villa latest news, rumours, gossip, polls, seeking those opinions on our Twitter page at Talk Trinity. You can check out our visual episodes on our YouTube channel, Talk of the Trinity, or if you're liking what you're hearing, quite literally, and that is all you need, then our audio providers, Apple, Amazon, Spotify, Google, are for you. And we are also on FanHub. So I mentioned that Will is not very happy about a loss. No other way really to delay this any longer. Like a plaster, you just got to rip it off. Events on Sunday at Villa Park. Aston Villa 1, Stevenage Borough 2. And no doubt Will would say if he was here, that's what happens when Baz predicts a positive result in terms of I thought we'd keep a clean sheet and that would win. That clearly did not happen. And quite a bizarre game, really. Quite an unusual game. I made a very late decision to go and sit in the whole end to watch it, which was quite the spectacle. I was sitting pretty much bang in line with a penalty spot, looking straight at Stevenage when they took that penalty, and then saw the events unfold when we decided not to close down on a corner and allowed somebody to have a free shot, which they gratefully scored. And up until 5 minutes ago, in many ways, you could say he was going not in an unusual way, as I just said, what you would predict. Because first half, Stevenage set out the way that we thought they would. 5-3-2, defensively solid, trying to keep it tight. Villa having the majority of the ball, trying to be patient, work it. Stevenage had a bit of joy, especially down our right-hand side, a few balls kind of behind in the channels, and had a goal disallowed for offside. But yeah, generally speaking, they were playing the stereotypical role of valiant underdogs looking to counter-attack, and second in League Two, so confidence in their play. But when the first goal went in from the lesser spotted Hanson, there was a feeling, I think, in the crowd of they've had their moment. Stevenage, nice day out, thanks for turning up, we'll take it from here. And the first 10 minutes of the second half, Villa had most of the ball, mostly in Stevenage penalty box, and didn't get the goal. But there was a feeling of, we can kind of step this up anytime we want. And I think it was that feeling of confidence, which was ultimately Villa's downfall, because I had to keep looking at the scoreboard during the run-up to Stevenage's first goal, just to check we were still 1-0 up, the way there was only 1-0, and now we weren't actually 3 or 4, based on the way that Villa settled in kind of to the game midway through the second half. That kind of pressing of the first 5-10 minutes appeared to largely disintegrate, really. There's a feeling of, yep, just keep the ball. We can put the pressure on when we need to. Stevenage had a shot on target by that point, apart from this lad goal. Yep, we got this covered. And it was potentially going to be more of a day to remember for the injuries that Villa potentially suffered in terms of Matty Cash going off injured, Augustinson going off injured, and bringing on, funnily enough, what potentially looks like first choice fullbacks of Digne and Ashley Young. And so everybody was just kind of amiably settling their way into, 1-0, kind of done it. And then the moment of Dendoncker madness in terms of there was that level of complacency, I feel, but demonstrating that regardless of who you're playing, if you give the opposition the ball on the edge of your box or within like 25 yards of goal, they know what way the goal is. So in terms of that is the way they're going to run. And I mean, I was just kind of bewildered by what I saw. I didn't even realise Dendoncker had been sent off until after the game, just because of trying to just comprehend what I'd just seen. And well taken penalty, to be fair. I mean, mentioned that the first choice right backs had gone on and full backs. Unfortunately, we hadn't brought on the first choice goalie with Martinez. There was none of his shenanigans to put off the Stevenage player. And yep, second shot off a corner. The basics didn't do right again, and absolutely shell shocked in terms of throwing away a place in the fourth round. The draw had been made before the game. People were talking about Stoke away, hoping there wasn't, a delay to the match so it didn't take place on a wet Tuesday night. Don't want those cliches of playing Stoke on a wet Tuesday night. Or, did kind of look like the task at hand was overlooked slightly. And I think we talked about it before the Wolves game in terms of how do you break down a team who aren't going to demand the majority of possession, who are just going to sit back and defend, going to hit you on the counter. How are we going to deal with that? And 2 games out of 2, not very well. It's really 2 home games, goal in each game, not really looking incisive, cutting edge. You're trying to scramble positives out of Sunday's game. There aren't really any. Ramsey came off the bench to get some minutes after injury. Yeah, one of those whereby in the boxing terminology, you just get hit by the sucker punch. I mean, technically we got hit by a 1-2 combo, having made the early running in the fight and kind of just sitting back to win by points, really, even though it's a cup tie. We know there's no points. And yeah, and that's what happens. you get done. I mean, this was the most extreme, or one of the most extreme example you could see. I mean, I think there was people looking at Newcastle having lost the day before, thinking, oh, yeah, Sheffield Wednesday in League One. Oh, yeah, what a funny shock that is. Yeah, we got suckered pretty good. And mentioning in terms of Augustinson going off injured, we have purchased a left back during the course of the week, Alex Moreno from Real Betis, believed be in the region of £12 million. Has been some talk as to whether that is going to be a replacement for Luca Digne or competition, or whether we will play them both in the same team and one playing on the left-hand side. That is a debate I'll be getting into in depth when I am reunited with my co-host, Mr. Forrest himself. But you would anticipate is Marino's come in as Emre's man. You expect he's going to play. You wouldn't expect that he is going to come to sit on the bench. In the injury probably finish off Augustinson's Villa career. I mean, wasn't expecting him to stick around after his loan deal expired. But yeah, once he gets up to match fitness and the manager feels that he's up to speed with the system, I'd expect Moreno to play. Whether that will be the right decision, I will leave that to debate for another time. And because I am itching to get away from events at Villa Park on Sunday, just got to talk about events at Villa Park that are coming up on Friday night when we welcome Leeds United to Villa Park. And it's usually entertaining when we play Leeds. Last season, the 3-3 draw, and we also got the away win over the results over the last couple of seasons. So yeah, there's usually a goal involved in these, and it will be interesting to see what shape we play. I mean, in terms of injury news at time recording, looks like John McGinn is out probably for the rest of the month. Cash status is uncertain. Doesn't look like he's going to play at time of recording. So a couple of injury concerns there. But we've mentioned in the preview for the last couple of games, are we going to stick to the same shape? Are we going to play 4-4-2? And in terms of the striking options, the talk has been from the manager that he sees Ings and Watkins as his strikers. He's got two. So yeah, it looks like we're going to be rolling out 4-4-2 again. Very narrow, potentially 4-4-2, depending on who we play. I mean, in terms of the Sunday Cup game, Coutinho obviously played on the left wing, very narrow in terms of ostensibly, from what I can see, he's meant to be playing on the left wing, but cutting inside mostly, and then cutting inside to try and curl it into the top corner and it going 10 yards over the bar on 4 or 5 occasions. Bay was on the right wing for some of the game. Then he was going up front. Sanson was then filling on the right wing, sometimes kind of inside. There was the attempt at flexibility, but in terms of whether we stick to a more rigid 4-4-2 for the Premier League, yeah, I'm expecting we probably will, because it did look a bit uncertain on times against Stevenage. The players not quite knowing precisely where they were meant to be kind of on occasion, maybe a bit too much interchange there. As regards Leon Bailey, do we expect him to play? The Twitter poll that we put out on at Talk Trinity Twitter page suggests that the fans think Bundia is going to be playing on the left wing and Ramsey on the right. Personally, I wouldn't be that averse to that, in terms of Bailey on Sunday looked like a man who was trying to make up for his miss on previous Wednesday against Wolves, but the more he tried, the worse it got. Really got himself into. If you're being positive, you'd say he got himself into positions on numerous occasions. If you're being negative, you'd say he messed it up every single time he got into those positions. So maybe we do put Bundia in there on the left wing, along with Louise and Cameron in the centre. And Jacob Ramsey mentioned him earlier. Yeah, I would play him. If we're not playing Bailey, I'd definitely play Ramsey, just as a bit of pace, just as a different option. Try and get him back up to speed with the rest of the team fairly quickly, because when he is on form, he can add something, especially as we saw against Man United in Emery's first game. But Leeds United, as we mentioned, they're indifferent. They had narrowly avoided their own cup set, equalising in injury time in their game against Cardiff to draw 2-2. But in the league, yeah, kind of it draws against West Ham, draw away Newcastle, losing to Man City since the Premier League got back up and running. So it's difficult to judge really where this Leeds team are. I mean, the fans don't entirely seem convinced by Jesse Marsch. They've spent money in January already, linked again with breaking their transfer record for a German striker. At time recording, the deal had not officially gone through, may have done by the time this comes out. So they are, before Friday night's game, 2 points above the drop zone and 5 points behind Villa. So with a game in hand. So it's difficult to know what to expect of Leeds. I think they're a team trying, there are some good players in there. It's just trying to get them all up to speed at the same time. Bamford, at time of recording, is expected to be on the bench. They've had some injury issues as well. So, yeah, both teams trying to get some inspiration, trying to get things kick-started. For Villa in a march into the top half, for Leeds in a march away from the bottom three, just to get themselves some breathing space. So there was a Friday night game Villa played in September against Southampton. Villa won 1-0. Dreadful game of football. Can we expect something similar against Leeds? And I don't think it's going to be quite as bad a game, but there's going to be, to reuse the boxing analogy from earlier, there's going to be a lot of shadow boxing. I think both teams trying to feel each other out, both teams not wanting to make the mistake. I mean, especially Villa playing at home, not wanting any opportunity for the fans to get on their back. And so when it comes to prediction time, I mean, before the previous game, I said, I expected Villa to win comfortably. That didn't happen. It's a toss-up for me between a draw and a Villa win. And Will is screaming when he's listening to this back, going that I need to pick the draw, because when it's positive, things can go badly wrong. I'm going to defy that order. And I'm going to go positive, and I'm going to go for 2-1. 2-1 Villa. It's going to be a scrappy game, I think. Not as bad as the Southampton game, but I don't think this is going to be the free-flowing style of football that Brazil will be proud of. But Leeds, they're struggling themselves, don't appear to know where they're getting a win from. And I think there will be a reaction. The fans will demand a reaction after Sunday's debacle. So I'm going to go Villa 2, Leeds 1, and to stop the little bit of wobbling that's happened over the last week or so. Week's a long time in football. But in terms of how Mr. Trinity has been feeling about this, how he has been ruminating on events, you do not need to wait a week, because you can find out right now as Mr. Forrest is here with his thoughts on all things Stevenage and looking forward to Leeds.
Aston Villa took on Stevenage in the FA Cup, and yes, you're correct. I used my hard-earned money to go because I wanted to take the family to go and watch a massive Aston Villa Cup win, and just didn't go to plan, did it really? I mean, as soon as that team came out, I've got to admit, I was a bit disappointed, but I was shocked as well more than anything else. I actually thought that Unai would play a strong team, and let's be fair, it was strong. There's a lot of internationals in there. You've got Olsen and Augustinson, Swedish internationals. Ashley Young went to, not the last World Cup, but the World Cup before with England, playing a key part there. You had Bednarek, international. Chambers there as well. You had Dougie Luiz, who's been one of our main players. Dendoncker, international. Bailey, international and a key player recently. You had Philip Coutinho, up until recently playing for Brazil. He was given a chance. And then you had Danny Ings and Morgan Sanson. And, Danny Ings has represented his country. Morgan Sanson, they had to play him a video on eBay to remind him what football was. But it was one of those games where you felt that we had enough to be able to do it, but there was too much tippy-tappy, passing round, where Stevenage dug in deep. It was a very good moment of play when we got our goal. A nice little build-up. Danny Ings drawing defenders to him, knocking the ball to Sanson. Sanson's finish was great. I had a feeling he'd get a goal. It's easy to say that afterwards, after he scored, but I did. But I really would have liked to have seen a stronger team. I really would have liked to have seen... I can understand Kamara not playing, but I would have liked to have seen Watkins up front with Danny Ings, playing in the usual 4-4-2. It seemed in many ways like Sanson was very narrow, Bailey was very wide, Coutinho was free roaming, which was expected, but it seemed more like a 4-5-1, 4-3-3 more than a 4-4-2, which is a shame because we know that the 4-4-2 has really been working well. And then, of course, we couldn't get the goals in the second half. We were passing it around too much again. Ashley Young didn't even start. It was Mike Ashley, another international. But we were passing it around too much again. We couldn't get going. Brought Ollie Watkins on. When those subs were made, and it was like for likes, and let's be honest, they were like for likes because they were replacement of the position in. It wasn't to change the formation, to push for that second goal, or to hold out for the 1-0 win. I got a bit more worried then. I got a bit more worried. Stevenage obviously got their goal after we tried to play out from the back, and Dendoncker makes the foul. Now, I've seen that, Dendoncker shouldn't have been sent off because there were players closer to the goal than him, and you shouldn't have a red card and a penalty against you. I don't agree with that. I think if it's a cynical enough foul, professional enough foul, last man foul, whatever, if it warrants a red card and a penalty or a free kick, then it should be both. I'd want it. I'd want it for the Villa if that was in front of the hole. And then of course they scored. You were hoping that Olsen would channel these in a debut, but he didn't. And then the last goal, and as they get that corner and the player runs across, my lad turns to me and he says, "They're going to score now." And they do. Really slow to get out to him. A fantastic strike into the near post. I don't believe all of this shouldn't be beaten at the near post. Goals always go at the near post. It's a clever tactic. Goalkeepers aren't expecting it. It's a fantastic drilled strike, and seeing the back of that net ripple, I was in a state of shock for 2 to 3 minutes. And we were never going to get back into it. Never going to get back into it. We had a couple of chances at the back post, a couple of chances into the arms of the keeper, crosses that just didn't really do anything. And all in all, Stevenage played very well. I don't like Stevenage. I think they're a bunch of idiots with some of the tweets and whatnot. I get it's banter. Mate, it's banter. Nah, mate, when you're taking the mickey out of the way that someone speaks, when you get the draw to start with, you can bore off, to be honest with you. But, the 2-1 defeat, Stevenage deserved it as much as they're idiots. And that's all I can say about it, really. I think Unai will have learned a lot. I think he's learned so much that he's brought in Alex Moreno. And Alex Moreno was probably already on his way in. Left back, ripping it up for Real Betis Blanc prior to coming here with his 5 goal involvements. Bit different to Din. Over the last few years, I've seen the stats where Din's been creating more chances. Since Din's time at the Villa and whatnot. He hasn't got as many goals. Alex Moreno hasn't been doing that, but he's had the solid defensive work. It'd be interesting to see which one plays, and I don't necessarily think that Unai's brought Moreno in to get rid of Din. I think he wants a top quality squad. Luca Din will stick around. Luca Din will fight for his place. He's not going to sulk, I don't feel. I think there'll be games where they both play in that 4-4-2, and Moreno might play a bit further forward. Luca Din might with his delivery on crosses. However, Moreno likes to get more into the box and weasel his way in and get a shot off or an assist. But yeah, I'm happy with that. There's the link also to Matteo Guendouzi. I probably said that completely wrong, and I do apologise. He's a different player to what he was at Arsenal. So, playing in the number 10 role this year, also captaining his side on occasions, being on the cusp of the French squad, that's good enough for me. And more so than that, if Unai wants him, Unai's worked with him, I trust Unai more than anybody else. He had a bad attitude at Arsenal. Yeah, mate, he was like 19, 20. He's grown up a bit since then by the looks of things, and Unai wants him. That's the main thing there for me. There's also the rumours that Danjuma is a player that we're after, and Chukwueze. Both of them, please, just both of them. We need wingers. I know we're not going to go and get El Ghazi back, and I've got a mate who will be forever saddened by that. Go and get both of them. Go and get both of them. I'd have thought that Bertie may have had a chance of coming back as well. I was really hopeful that he might. I know he didn't set the world on fire last year, but the year before, behind closed doors, he did well for us. And maybe he just needed a hug a little bit more support. Yeah, he had a great song, let's be honest. But he needed a bit more. But moving on from those players, and I'm sure we'll do a transfer window special at some point. I know we haven't done that. This is still what I would like, transfer window special. We haven't had the time. Everybody's growing up just a little bit, or they're defending their houses against hurricanes. You know, are returning to ability counts football, or not Baz and me just sat on his sofa getting fat, eating over Christmas. But we move on to Leeds, and dirty Leeds come to Villa Park under the lights on Friday, B6, and we put a poll out, and we've asked questions as well about teams and whatnot. We don't know whether Alex Moreno will be able to play yet, whether he'll have all of his documentation come through. You know, I was hoping that he will to be able to make an appearance, but we'll see. There's some big question marks over some of the players who could be playing, but Leeds are an energetic team. They work hard for each other. They've seen a high turnover of players. They got rid of, they sold two of their main players, and it's affected them a little bit, you know. They've still got Rodrigo, who's banging in goals, and if you're a fantasy football person, I'm sure that he'd be in your team. They've got Somerville, who's scored some crucial goals in the wins against Bournemouth and Liverpool. And they've got some genuinely decent, good results as well. The 3-0 against Chelsea, the 2-1 away to Liverpool, as I say. Jesse Marsh doesn't like the Villa, really. I don't think Leeds do they? We don't particularly like it. I don't think we care about it, to be honest with you. But we've got those chances and those opportunities there to have a go at Leeds. I think we need to be mindful of their high energy. They may try to counter-attack us. It may suit us best if we try to counter-attack them and get the ball up to our strikers and our wingers and let them float inside and drag them about a little bit all over the place. If we can do that, we've got a very good chance. We've got to have a strong base in midfield, and because of that, I think Booba and Dougie occupy those two central midfield roles. I do apologise, I just burped before, so if I burp down your ears, I'm sorry for being a stick. But Booba and Dougie, in goal would be Devo. Two centre-backs have got to be Conser and Mings. They've started to recapture that old form that they had with each other, and whilst not everybody's 100% trusting, I am. Tyrone Mings will play a searching through ball. There are, I don't know what I was going to say, there's hundreds of through balls, long-range passes that he's played from one half to the other to Villa players. I saw the statistics, I can't remember the exact number, but it was compared to Guendouzi, and Mings was the only Villa player with more. Mings and Conser in their respective positions. Imagining that Moreno doesn't have the work permit or starts as a sub, we get Luke Din at left back, and I'm torn at right back. I think Ashley Young deserves to play. Ashley Young has been brilliant this season, potentially our player of the season this season. He does everything that we need him to. The high energy of Leeds does concern me a little bit, but as he's mentioned in a recent interview, if you want someone who's going to dig in the trenches next to you, it's Ashley Young. Matty Cash, though, has got energy to burn. He'll run all day for you, try and get forward. He'll knock the ball backwards before he puts a cross in or drives into the box, which hopefully we will see him doing more of. But I'll go with Ashley Young. You've told you my two central midfielders. My wider midfielders, well, Morgan Sanson played extremely well the other night, but I don't think he starts. He might be on the bench, he might get on. He did really well. I was glad to see how well he did, and I was glad to see how much he appreciated the support, though it could have been the old clap around the ground because he's off. And I don't mean claps in a bad way. I mean, applauding the fans. For those reasons, I'm going to put I'm going to put Leon Bailey in on the right so that he can cut in onto the left, but he can also move over to the left if he needs to. Leon Bailey, I do feel deserves or needs a rest. It's just having the players to bring in. And I wouldn't start both of our number 10s, our Buendia and our Coutinho. But I would start one of them. And you're going to ask me which one, and I'm probably going to surprise you. I'd go with Philip Coutinho. I thought he did quite well against Stevenage. It took him a while. He twisted and turned a lot. He had a lot of shots. He was trying to find his range. I see something in him at the moment where he wants to do well for us. He wants to get on the ball. He wants to be able to feed people. He wants to show that he can be the Coutinho that we expect and that we paid that money for. So Coutinho and Bailey for me, with Buendia ready to come on for either one of them, or Sanson ready to come on. And then, obviously, up front, I mean, I'm going with Danny Ings and Ollie Watkins. I didn't think Danny Ings was great against Stevenage. I felt he was very isolated. Captain as well for the day. That was nice to see. He got very close to me at times, which was lovely. But I'd have him up front because I think he'd get that ball into the box and he puts it away, or he at least gets it on target, or you know, links it into another player. He moves that ball when he knows what to do. He's got a finisher's brain. He's got a killer instinct, and he might not be the one putting the ball in the back of the net, but he will set somebody up who's in a good position to do so. So Danny Ings for me has to start. I've seen that. I've had a little bit of a conversation, back and forth, if you like, whatever you want to call it, with someone on Twitter, and they're saying that Ings is too slow. Nowadays, you can't just have a player in the team who's not going to offer anything. I disagree. I think you can have Ings in the team, get everybody else working hard around him, and just say to him, mate, as we push him forward, make sure you're in that box. You know, just inside it, 6-yard box, penalty box, wherever you are, just make sure you're in there, because the opposition will come to you then. If we can get the ball to you quicker than they can get to you, then obviously have a shot or lay it off. But if they get to you first, you'll free up other players. I've just realised I'm not playing Leon Bailey, I'm playing Jacob Ramsey. There you go. Bit of a switch. Jacob Ramsey, not Leon Bailey. Leon Bailey gets the rest he deserves. And then, and Jacob will score against Leeds. And then Ollie Watkins has to start. Ollie Watkins has been in fine form under Unai. He's been running the channels. He's been getting in behind players. He's been creating opportunities for himself. The header against Liverpool was brilliant. And you just sort of think, let's get Ollie Watkins here playing football again. Let's get him happy. Let's get him up front with Danny Ings. They work well together. They like each other. So let's go and get some goals. So there you go. Martinez, Young, Concert, Mings, Din, Dougie and Booba, JJ and Coutinho, Ings and Watkins. Watkins. Yes, there you go. I see that team beating Leeds. I see us being quite comfortable beating Leeds as well. We obviously need to get the fans behind us, and Unai Emery's press conference was very, very telling in the fact that he felt the same, but he realises that the players have to perform as well, that we are a family, and it's going to be one of those family vibes, that positivity that gets us over the line in a 3-1 victory for Aston Villa. So, let's make sure that we're in it together on Friday night, whether we're watching at home on Sky, whether we're listening on the radio, whether we're keeping up to date on Twitter, or you're at the match itself. Get behind the lads. I hope you've enjoyed listening to us on all of our podcast providers, Apple, Google, Spotify, Deezer, Tweezer, Freezer, you know, Teaser, maybe. And watching us on YouTube, you don't get to see our lovely faces again. It is just the voices and the picture as well. But it needs to be game night. It's not just any old game night though this Friday. It's family game night. And what that means is the family are going to watch the game, be positive, and get behind the lads. Villa fans, we know at times we can not be the most supportive, but when we are and when we're in full voice at Villa Park under the lights, nothing beats it. Best fan base in the country, in the world. I'm going to go for in the universe. I'm going to say that. Thank you for listening to Baz Barrett. Thank you for listening to me as well. As always, he's Villa till he dies. I'm Villa till I die. Cheers, sir. Thank you very much. Up the Villa.